Good morning, everybody. This is going to be a 700-mile review of my Ak550. It's a 2022 version. The newer versions, I bought this new. The newer year models are pretty much the same in the United States. The Europeans get a one with piano keys for the control button and also lean angle ABS if you get the upgraded model. So this does have the Brembo brakes front and back. They're excellent brakes. This motorcycle I think is around 470 pounds or close to it, 465 pounds. There's some scratches there. The big one that was right under my finger was at the dealer. I didn't even notice that. The other scratches I did that. So be careful when you're using the center stand. It kind of goes back and you can't control where it goes because it's kind of heavy. It's got a belt drive there for the rear wheel. It's covered up, most of it, which is good, but there's some bad aspects to that. If you want to check your belt, you got to take the little covers off, get on your knees anyway. You still have to adjust the belt. So these belts are not maintenance free. There I am putting it on the center stand. Like I said, it's a little heavier than what I'm used to. It's got a side stand as well. It's got rear passenger pegs, which I use a lot for me, right there. I have lower back issues, and if you're on a traditional scooter position, you kind of get hunched over, and it's not good for your lower back. But when I put my feet on those back pegs like that, I hook them into my heels on my boots. And even though the back peg is kind of skinny, it kind of holds my feet pretty well. These are the storage compartments. The left side has a USB power outlet. These are pretty small. I'm not even sure if a normal size iPhone will fit in there. But I don't use those for anything really other than basic small items like glass cleaners and stuff like that. These mirrors are foldable. It's nice when you're putting them in a tight area. Those handlebar mirrors do not come with it. I added those because you can't see behind you with the regular mirrors. That's the coolant level. It's kind of hard to see because the plastic is really thick and white, and then the coolant color doesn't contrast that well. So it's a plus and minus. You get the level, but you can't. It's hard to see. Got to get in there with a flashlight in kind of a dark area. So here I'm turning on the lights. It's all LED lights around the whole bike. Those are the running lights. I'll turn the brights on a little bit. So my reference is I had a Honda PCX scooter, the 157cc version in the United States, and I turned the engine on there and I turned the brights on right there. So I usually have it in bright mode on this one. I also have a KTM 390 Adventure as my reference as well. I'm a fairly new rider, so that's all I have for my own reference. About a year and a half I've been riding. The KTM 390, I usually keep the lights. I don't use the brights because they are pretty bright. And I also have auxiliary lights, so I don't feel like I need it. But this one I don't think is super bright during the day. I don't usually ride at night. I just ride for fun. So this is the gas. If you turn the switch to the right, it's the gas filler. I will say the neck is really skinny. So when you're trying to fill it up, especially in California, you got to pull up on the vapor catch to get it to pump. And then you got to look in there and make sure you get your level. It's kind of hard. I mean, harder than my other two bikes. Okay, I'm going to use my iPhone 14 Plus because you don't get the flicker. The GoPro, you have flicker. So here we go. I'm going to push this thing is all floppy. Push the seat, on button. This now has control. Go to the top. Now you can hit the start button once this is over here. hit the start button. So now the display is lit, doesn't blink. So here are voltage. I'll start cycling through. Okay, we have tire pressures. You have to convert those. We have battery voltage. There we go, back to the tire pressures. And that's going up. And you have to circle all the way back if you miss something. So the one down below, I'm going to hit the down rocker. There you go, oil mileage, belt mileage. So I've got almost 700 miles on it. This display, I haven't done anything with it. Haven't even changed the clock, but suppose there's an app that you can do where you can change some of that stuff. Over here is fuel, engine temperature, safety lights. Down over here we have the parking brake, which is nice when you park. When I come up my driveway, I'm on a hill, I can flip this, get the remote out of my pocket, and I'm hands-free at that point. So you have your standard brights, heated grips, passing, flash. This is the mode for changing. Let's see, we'll change it right now. That's, I guess, normal mode, and then this is rain mode for the acceleration. I always leave it in rain mode. Not too many opportunities for accessories, so you do have to buy some kind of specialized accessories. This one goes on to the brake reservoir for your phone. So you can put two of them, and you can get, you know, different angles and things like that. This windshield's all the way up, I believe. It's fine for me. I'm 6'2", with a 32-inch inseam. Down here you have the blinker, left. That's the blinker sound. It's pretty loud when you're stopped, and then push the middle to reset it. It's the horn. I'm in a closed area in my garage, so it sounds a little louder than it should be normal. Start, you do have a hazard. This does have a hazard option, nice. These brakes, all these levers are adjustable. This is the rear brake, front brake. These mirrors did not come with it. I added those because these mirrors over here, you can't see really behind you. There's also a steering lock. I hardly ever use it. You turn it all the way to the left, turn the handlebars. That's it on the display. Here's the key. It's pretty big. It's kind of light. There's a place right here. So if you run out of battery, place it right here. You can start it up. This is my vibration alarm. It doesn't come with it. But if you turn your lights on, if you engage this on-off and leave this switch up, without turning it to one of these X's, you can run your battery down. So keep that in mind. Keyless is convenient, but you can run your battery down if you forget. If you have a key, you know, you're turning it and you're grabbing it and taking it with you. Will a 2X helmet fit? A lot of scooters say yes. Here we go, we'll test it out. A Dell 2XL with a GoPro. So far so good. Oops. Let's see. And it fits. Barely. Okay, so I'm mixing mostly good with a little bit of bad. So here's one of the bads. It's my first time riding slow speed practice after a couple months. They were redoing the blacktop at my favorite spot here. And you see, I almost fell there. And if you listen close to the throttle, it's throttle's like a cliff. So that's one bad aspect. It's not very good for slow speed practice. This is a clip here of about after 6 days of 10 to 15 minutes of practice. Lots of rear brake. We'll talk about that rear brake issue. But rear brake definitely compensates for not having a clutch. So you don't get as big of a cliff when you reduce the throttle. I definitely recommend some rear brake if you're going to try to do some tighter turns. But like the DCT motorcycles as well, I don't think this motorcycle is really made for slow speed practice. It's also a little bit longer. But here's kind of the issue. I think maybe this is normal. But when I looked at the belt after 700 miles, there's lots of these little doohickeys, I'm calling them. The belt's kind of stressed. There's little strings coming out. Not huge, but definitely not a brand new belt anymore. The rest of the belt looked good, so I'm not too worried about it, but I'm suspecting it's from the stress of using the rear brake. So use it sparingly, or at least that's what I'm going to do. So here's a rough road coming up here. One other thing, this is an example of a rough road, if you can simulate that through a camera. It's very good. The suspension is very good. KTM at 390 is better though. But for as heavy as this bike is, I think I've only bottomed out once. It was just a very light bottom out. But going back to the belt, I'll show a little clip here of, there's a special meter that you need. It's some sort of sonic meter. It's like $600. It's very complex. For normal adjustments of the belt. And so you have to get on your knees, you have to take those two things off, the top cover, lower cover. You still have to adjust it if it gets loose, and my belt is much looser than when it was new. Again, it's probably a lot of the Some of it's normal, some of it might be from the rear, using a lot of rear brake. I practice one U-turn, one left U-turn. I'm in the United States, so left U-turns are more common. I do one left U-turn every time I ride. I do an emergency brake from 40 miles an hour and one left U-turn, and I use some brake. So I'm going to consistently do that. But if you're doing a lot of slow speed practice, yeah, I imagine that the rear brake is going to stress it out. Just like the DCTs from Honda, a lot of these motorcycles cannot handle a lot of low speed practice. Even with a clutch, if you're not letting that clutch cool off, you can wear out your clutch pretty quick. If you're not doing it perfect every time. So that's the end of that. So here's a clip of me going down a 26% grade. I'm just going to go over some of the other pluses and minuses of this. I'm going to go through my list here while this is running. The winning aspect was the seat position for me with the rear passenger pegs, because I have low back issues. So if I'm sitting hunched over, that's not good. So normal scooter positions, you're hunched over. The competition for this scooter is going to be in my opinion, the NC750X from Honda, which is a little bit bigger on the engine, but better gas mileage. And then on the lower end would be the X-Max 300 Yamaha in the United States. That's all we have. Coming out of the MSF, I'm a heavier person. I would not get the PCX. If I could go back in time, I would get the X-Max 300. You just can't get on the freeway, and then sometimes you need that little extra power. And then for gas mileage, I was getting 80 miles to the gallon because I'm heavy, right? A little engine with a heavy person, you get terrible gas mileage. Not terrible, but most guys were getting 100 or plus on that. So with the X-Max 300, I don't know, I'd probably get 75 on that. But the NC750X, that seating position, my sit bones are real sensitive too. So I can't just plop my butt down and be in one position. So I think that's an issue, and that's why I didn't go with that one. I couldn't test ride it either. But I do think the NC750X is probably better for most people. Better dealer support. That's another issue, is dealer support. Actually, the dealer I bought it from, they didn't even want to service it. I called the service department. They weren't sure if they could even service it. Like, they didn't know what it was. And they called me back 2 days later and said they would service it. But I ended up getting my local dealer who's on the Kymco website. So if you go to Kymco's website, they'll tell you which dealers are represented by them. First time I called my local dealer before I bought the bike, they said they would not service it. But when I called them back, and I think I told them that you guys are on their website, and they went ahead and did it. So I got my first service through them. They're only 20 minutes from me, which is cool. So if you had the NC750X, I don't think that'd be a big of an issue. I think they're close to the same price. I think I got a good deal on this one. It was last year's model. So that's part of it, your buying experience and stuff like that. When I was originally looking for motorcycles, the NC7, the dealer, that same dealer, they had marked up the motorcycle to match the new year coming in's price, and it was actually the older model. I didn't find that too ethical. But that's the way it works when you buy new vehicles. You can't get mad at every dealer unless they treat you bad. So price is always negotiable. And so let me go through the rest of this stuff. Like I said, the belt drive. And the good part is there's no clutch, which means there's no change in RPMs. It's very smooth, except for that when you chop the throttle, it's like a cliff. You're hands-free at the lights. My KTM 390, it's very difficult to put it into neutral. So every time I'm at a light, I'm pulling in the clutch, which is fine. It's kind of weird when I first got it because I was used to the Honda PCX. And let's say somebody waved to you or whatever, you wanted to scratch something or grab something with your left hand, you could do that. So it's hands-free at the light. And of course it's hands-free if you know how to get your bike into neutral with a clutch. The front floorboards, I don't use them a lot. I'd say 80% I'm using the rear pegs, 20% I'm using the front floorboards. But when you're doing emergency brakes, that front floorboard is kind of nice. You're pushing up against it. I don't feel like I'm going to go flying over the handlebars. When I'm hitting the emergency brakes, it doesn't dive very much. My Honda PCX was terrible. Again, it's not made. The Honda PCX was not made for heavy people. I'd say if you're 165 pounds, you're good to go on that one. I've heard reviews, motorcycle riders of scooters that say they don't feel, I guess, safe in the seating position because they feel like they're going to go flying over the handlebars, but I think it's the opposite. Trying to squeeze your gas tank when you're doing emergency brakes, or obviously if you hit somebody, either one, you're going flying. But I feel more comfortable locking my legs, and I'm a little on the taller side with the front floorboards. So the other issue, I think I'm not a big fan of electronics. I'm used to these electronics. The switch is somewhat complicated, the center switch. The blinkers are nice and loud, but if you're moving along at a clip, I cannot hear them. Especially if you had earplugs, you wouldn't be able to hear them. The miles per gallon meter's way off, I'm not sure, per tank. And I'm not sure what's the deal with that. Like I said, it might be in British gallons or something. I don't know. But I get 47 miles a gallon. There's a lack of handlebar accessories. That's kind of a negative. It's a little heavy for me from what I'm used to. But if you're coming from a bigger bike, yeah, that's not going to be an issue. And I was talking about slow speed. I don't think it's made. This scooter's kind of long. So that doesn't make for good tight turns either. But I find I don't use a lot of slow speed. I don't use this motorcycle for shopping. So I'm not in a lot of parking lots normally. And then of course 90-degree turns and everything. You're gonna practice all that when you drive normally. So if I do get in a sticky situation, I'm going to do some duck walking. I'm going to go around the block. I'm going to go around the parking lot. If I don't feel comfortable in making a sharp U-turn. So what I'm saying is if you're a brand new rider for this motorcycle and you do need to do a lot of slow speed practice, and it's probably not the best. It's also a little heavy for a new rider. It's a lot of power for a new rider. I wouldn't recommend this for a new rider. Even the NC750X, I don't know. Probably the X-Max 300 if you're on the heavier side. And even the Honda PCX was pretty good. I thought that was big when I first got it. Even though I'm a heavier person. I was a little nervous about going full throttle on that one. So, but you'd have to have the money to sell it and get something else and things like that. So money's definitely a consideration. Another one is lack of YouTube video repairs and maintenance videos. This one is on the lower side of that. So I've watched a lot of YouTube videos. The NC750X is a lot more, I would say. The X-Max 300, maybe not so much. But I test drove a C400 GT, the BMW. There was no videos at the time that I test drove that, and that was kind of a deal breaker for me for sure. But there was other issues with that one. So YouTube videos on how to repair is definitely an aspect of what you want. And that's pretty much it. The tailpipe scratches and things like that. But overall, I would buy this motorcycle again. I only know what I know. And if I could ride the NC750X. Now I say the NC750X, the seating position is probably not the best. I did sit on it in a dealer, but when I bought the 390 Adventure, the seating position felt very similar except for the handlebars being wider. And it was a kind of a cupped seat. I did buy the upgraded or aftermarket or whatever it is. I think it's still made by KTM long seat. It's a one-piece seat for the KTM 390, which allowed me to move back and forth. So the original seat for the KTM 390 seemed very similar to the NC, and it hurts my sit bones because I can't move around. And so I feel like the NC seating position would probably not be good for me long term. So that's how I made that decision. But in the future, you never know. If Honda ever comes out in the U.S. with their the 750X version, the scooter version, the off-road scooter version, maybe I'll look into that, because that one you can add pegs to it in addition to the floorboards. Who knows? Anyway, I enjoy the bike, and I hope you like the review. Thank you for watching.